Welcome to the Hudson Valley Chapter's 2024 March meeting entitled Stakeholder Centric Project Leadership, Driving Engagement, Expectations, and Impact. Housekeeping. Please use the chat for any questions, comments, and to participate in activities. This meeting is being recorded. The recording will be posted on PMI-HVC's YouTube channel. Please ensure you are on mute. Sorry, but we do not want to hear what you got cooking for dinner or what you have going on in the background. Thank you so much. Greetings. I am Jasmine T. Clark. I am your VP of Professional Development. So I'm just going to briefly go over the agenda, the welcome announcements. We'll have a brief unity exercise. We'll have breakout sessions, Guess Who with HVC. We have our guest speaker and our Q&A from Tareka Willer, excuse me, that's a mouthful, sorry, and our closing remarks. So let's get started. Our Spring Professional Development Day is Friday, May 31st from 10 to 2. It's a virtual professional development day. Registration opens soon. Chapter leadership, volunteers are needed. Nominating committee, we need 2 volunteers. Nominating committee members will assist with nominating committee chairs to identify a list of candidates for open board positions. Requirement, HVC membership. Time commitment, approximately 5 hours per month from April through June. Also in need, chapter leaders. Looking for volunteers to become part of HVC's leadership team. We have an open position for board secretary, which basically attends board meetings, documents meeting minutes, follow up on action items, and time commitment is approximately 3 hours per month. We have other various board positions available also. You have to attend board meetings, plan strategy for chapter, ensure chapter requirements are met, details vary by role, and time commitments vary by role, but this average of 10 hours per month. If you're interested, please contact Jeffrey Brown at member@large@pmihvc.org. March is Women's History Month and National Reading Month. I want to give a warm welcome to our new members. We have Agus, Angela, Denver, Karen, Lewis, Rosalia, Ryan, and if I mispronounce anyone's name, I do apologize. Adam, congratulations to our new certifications, our new PMPs. We have Adam, Jason, and Neil. Congratulations again. And congratulations to our renewals. We have Aaron, Allegan, Anne-Marie, Brenda, Curtis, Danny, Douglas, Frank, Jermaine, Holly, James, Jana, John, Catherine, Kathleen, Katia, Kenneth, Richard, Timothy, Tina, Veronica, Adam, and Carolina. Congratulations. And for our unity exercise, we all should know that diversity makes for a rich tapestry and must understand that all threads of the tapestry are equal in value no matter their color. That's from Dr. Maya Angelou. So now I would like you to put in the chat, on a scale of means, how are you feeling today? Okay, so I see a 6. I see a 3. Upside down around 8. I have an 8. I think I'm a 7 myself. A toss-up between a 7 and a 1, because 1 is having a good time. Anybody else? Okay. Thank you for sharing that in the chat. So now we have our small group activity entitled Guess Who? The Hudson Valley Chapter Way, but also in recognition of Women's History Month edition. So what does that mean? Let us see. Guess Who? The Hudson Valley Way. Women's History Month edition. Small group instructions. Each group will be assigned 5 random facts about a mystery woman. past or present. Each group will have 5 minutes to guess who their mystery woman is. Hint, your mystery woman could be real or fiction. After 5 minutes, we will rejoin the large group, and each group will attempt to guess their assigned woman. And again, in the spirit of transparency, Google can be your friend. So these are the clues. So I'll read them so you can start to think, and then when we get dispersed into our groups, you'll pretty much know which person you're guessing. So for group A, I had a really important job that I started in 1993. I'm a March baby, March 15th. I was born in New York, Brooklyn stand up, Flatbush to be exact. I overcame a lot of adversity in my field. I shared a nickname with another Brooklynite, a rapper. Who am I? Group B, I'm a March baby, March 10th. I engaged in risky behavior. I was hit on the head and it allowed me to see visions. I am an icon of courage and freedom. I helped a lot of people. Who am I? Group C, I'm a July baby, July 24th. I became a cultural icon after my disappearance. I always had my head in the clouds. I was the first woman to do what I did. I have a stamp, an airport, a museum, a bridge, just to name a few. Who am I? Last but not least, Group D, I'm a June baby, June 25th. I was born in New York, South Bronx baby. I graduated from Princeton University. The TV show Perry Mason inspired me into law. My parents were there, but not. My grandma raised me. Who am I? So at someone said Group C was real easy. I had a lot of hard ones and I had to make it a little bit easy for people. So just give me 1 second to put you guys into groups. Thank you so much. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. So do we have anyone from Group A that would like to come off mute and guess who their person is?
Jamie Lee.
Jamie Lee? Who's Jamie Lee?
She's a comedian who was born March 15th, and she ended up moving to New York City, where she did stand-up comedy in Brooklyn.
Oh, okay. Is that your final answer?
I'm kind of thinking it shouldn't be the way you're reacting, but
No. I'm just asking. I just wanted to know, is that your final answer?
That's what I got.
Okay, not a
I
problem. Thank
wasn't
you
in
so
Group
much.
A, but I have an idea.
Okay.
Is it Notorious RBG, Ruth Bader Ginsburg?
We'll see in a second.
Okay.
Group B. Anybody from Group B want to guess?
Well, Group B was pretty quiet. It was me and one other person. My guess
Okay.
here is Harriet Tubman.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. Is that your final answer?
That is my final answer.
Okay. Group C. Anyone want to guess?
Oh, come on. It's Earhart.
Is that your final answer?
That's my answer.
Are you in Group C? I just realized
No.
that.
No.
You're a troublemaker. You're a troublemaker. All right, let's see if that's the correct answer. Group D.
So Tareka and I had a lovely Google search. Our first guess was Judge Judy, but quickly learned that she was born in Brooklyn. So we then settled on Chief Justice Sonia Sotomayor.
All right, let's see whose answers were correct. So small group activities. Group A, they were correct. The notorious RBG. She is Associate Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Group B was also correct. Harriet Tubman, American abolitionist and social activist. Group C, although Group C representative didn't speak, somebody else did. They were correct. Amelia Earhart, American aviation pioneer. What gave it away, Chris?
Come on, it was everything. They were
Head in the clouds.
Didn't it say something about they got lost? Come on.
Actually, no.
Let's see. Cultural icon after my disappearance.
My disappearance. Yeah, okay.
I always had my head in the clouds. Come on.
Okay. Tough crowd.
Oh, I loved it.
And Group D, yes, absolutely correct. Sonia Sotomayor. And I love how you deducted that one is from Brooklyn, one is from the Bronx. Excellent work, guys. So everybody give yourself a kudos. That was a great activity. Hopefully you enjoyed it as much as I did creating it. So we'll move along with our program. Next up, we have the fabulous Tareka Wheeler.
That would be better. How's that? Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we can. And Tareka, just let me know when you want me to proceed with your slides.
Yeah, for sure. You can go next slide. Hi, everyone. How are you? Tareka Wheeler here. I'm super excited about being a part of your chapter meeting tonight. I was very excited to connect with Jasmine on this. And I hope that this topic is helpful for you. I hope this topic, for those who are here live, but also those who go back and listen to the recording, that you find some of this that you could use in your day-to-day as you're managing projects, managing stakeholders, engaging with stakeholders across maybe your company, your organization, your community, what have you. I'm a firm believer that from a leadership perspective, especially in project leadership, we have to keep stakeholders at the center, at the nucleus of the work we're doing. And so today we're going to talk about stakeholder-centric project leadership. How are we driving engagement, expectations, and impact? So let's jump in. Let's go to the next slide. As I said, my name is Tareka Wheeler, and here's a little bit about me. I am a senior program and project management executive with about 25 years of experience in the public and private sector. I did a lot of time within healthcare space and nonprofit. And then in 2017, I got pulled into that GovCon space or government contracting space and started to do projects in the data science, data transformation, digital transformation, and strategic communication space, which is where I am now. I am a huge advocate for value, knowing the value that you bring as an individual to the table, and also a huge advocate for harmony. I truly believe that it's very difficult to achieve work-life balance, but it's absolutely possible to achieve work-life harmony where your personal activities and your professional activities come together and you have work-life integration. That's a whole nother presentation. We'll do that another day. I also believe in being a transformer. I love the movie Transformers. I don't know if there's anybody out there who loves the Transformers series of movies. If so, let me know. Use the chat. Give me a little emoji. But I love Transformers. But I also see myself as a transformer and really helping individuals and organizations transform from their current state to future state and helping them be strategic about how they get from point A to point B. I'm a wife and mom of 3 beautiful kids. My youngest is 20. My middle child, which is my daughter, is 21, and my oldest is 25. So I have 2 boys and a girl in the middle. And then I'm a Texas native. I am originally from Austin, Texas, and I moved to the Northern Virginia area in about 2013 or so, and have been here ever since, but I am a Austin, Texas girl. Okay, so I think that's a little bit about me. Let's jump into this presentation and what you're going to gain today. So let's jump into the next slide. One of the things that I'm hoping that you will take from this is that success in your projects is not just about delivery. It's not. It actually is more around people leadership and people management than the project piece. And a lot of those elements come along the way. But when you are a strategic stakeholder-centric project leader, it makes a big difference in not only how you're managing your work currently, but the impact that you're going to have long term with each of the different layers of stakeholders within your projects or within your companies and organizations. So you're going to gain a whole lot of things, but in these 4 big buckets. 1, understand the concept of stakeholder-centric leadership, right? So we're going to define what that is and recognize the difference between primary and secondary stakeholders, because all stakeholders are not created equal, just in case you didn't know that, or someone has told you that they are. We're going to talk about developing effective stakeholder engagement strategies and what are some different techniques that you can use to really gather and manage stakeholder expectations. I don't know about you guys, but I've definitely had some stakeholders who did not have realistic expectations, or our expectations did not necessarily align. I also want you to be able to understand how to use stakeholder mapping and things like influence grids and tailor engagement efforts that are going to be helpful for you. We're going to talk about mitigating and resolving stakeholder conflicts and what are some of the ways that you can do that, and then applying this concept and idea of stakeholder-centric leadership to some real project scenarios that I want to be able to walk through with you and get your feedback and ideas on how you might address a particular scenario. So what I will say to you is that tonight is designed to be interactive. I want to use the chat. I want you to use emojis. I know you guys have probably used Teams a million times over, but in the top little tray, you've got a pop out, you have a chat, you have a people, you have a raise, you have a react. I want you to focus on react. So talk back to me via your react emoji up there. And then there we go. Somebody knows how to use it. And then I also want you to use the chat. You can ask me questions throughout within the chat, and then there'll also be a time that we can do that at the end as well. Okay. And then Jasmine, keep me honest around time, because once I get going, sometimes I might lose my concept of time. So just give me a little warning in the chat when we're about 10 minutes out. That way I can be sure that we reserve time for isolated questions at the end. If you guys are ready, somebody type ready in the chat so I know we can get going. Anybody ready? I don't know. Maybe. Oh, I think I see some dots moving. Ready, ready. I love it. Okay, let's go next slide. Love it, love it. There you go. You're talking back to me now. So what is actual stakeholder-centric leadership? If we think about the word leadership, and I truly believe that, there's managers and there's directors, but then there's leaders, right? And most of the times in job descriptions, you don't see that someone is the leader of X, Y, and Z, right? They're usually the manager of or the director of. Because I believe that to be a leader, there are certain ways that you have to engage and think, right? You need to be able to influence. People should be in a space that they don't just work for you or under you, but they are willing to follow and be influenced by you because they believe in what you're doing. If we take that concept and we pull that into stakeholder-centric leadership, it is really about prioritizing the needs and expectations of all project stakeholders. And it's critical or it's crucial for project managers to effectively engage stakeholders to ensure the project's success. But I want to take you back to one piece here before we go to the next slide, is that it's about prioritizing the needs. When you can prioritize the needs and someone knows that you're prioritizing them, they are more likely to be aligned with you. They're more likely to allow themselves to be influenced by you. And you're more likely as a leader to be able to achieve your project objectives or goals. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So when we're thinking about our stakeholders, the very first thing we have to do is understand who they are, right? There's nothing worse than being in a place of project leadership and project management, and you don't actually know who your stakeholders are, right? So stakeholders as a whole, and we know this, they're individuals, they're groups of people who have a vested interest in the project success, right? Anybody who is engaged in this project. You may say, well, all of my stakeholders might not, they don't seem like they're vested in success. Well, that still doesn't make them that they're not a stakeholder. We just got to get them on board. There's primary and there's secondary, right? Primary stakeholders have a direct impact on the project, whereas secondary stakeholders are indirectly affected. So I want you to think about in your projects that you are managing or that portfolios where you're managing or just within the roles that you have within your organization, who are your primary stakeholders? Who has a direct impact on your project or who has a direct impact on your department, right? Think about that. And then and for those of you guys, I love for you if you're taking notes, fantastic. Like this is a great time to just start making this thing real for you, right? Try to apply what we're talking about today to what you're doing every single day in your project management, project leadership journey. So I want you to write down in your project or in your org, who's your primary stakeholder? Who has a direct impact? Who can you think about who that is? And then I want you to think about on the secondary side, who's like, they're a part of the project because remember, it's anybody who has a vested interest in the project success, but they're kind of indirectly affected. Okay, start thinking about that. Let's go to the next slide. I'm going to give you some definition to each one of these stakeholder groups. So primary stakeholders, your primary stakeholders should stand out. It should be clear who they are and what exact connection or intersect they have with what you're doing every single day. So they typically relate very strongly to the core mission and purpose of the project, right? They understand what it is, what it's here for. They may even be the program sponsor or project sponsor, and they are fiscally tied to this work. So like they believe in the mission and the purpose. Primary stakeholders also share similar aims to you, but may not have the reach. They may not have the capabilities to deliver, but they still have the same aim, right? They still have the same objective. They just might not necessarily be in a place where they could actually move things forward. We'll often find that your primary stakeholders, or if you do not find them, you will also find sometimes that they are aware of you, right? So we'll often find if you do not find them, right? They sometimes are like aware of you when they're lurking and you gotta kind of search for them a little bit, but they can be a little bit of an enigma. Can often provide an enormous lift in your capacity, right? So someone who can help you with more funding and more resources, who, for those of you guys who work in government contracting, somebody who can help you get that modification, someone who can help you increase scope, someone who can help you manage scope so we don't get in scope creep, someone who can help you gain access to what you need, right? Someone who is like an information or knowledge broker, that person can get you access, or they can help you lift and or increase your capacity. They will generally want to succeed, as they may choose to invest in your ideas, methods, and capacity. So they generally want to see you win, or they want to see this project win, right? So they're going to be invested in a different way. They may have a formal relationship with you. So they may have an MOU, they may have a contract or an agreement. That agreement and that contract needs to do well. So guess what? I am a strong primary stakeholder because we have a formal binding relationship and I need things to go well. Okay, that's our primary stakeholder group. Let's go to the next slide and talk about our secondary stakeholders. So they're important to your mission, but they may be one that has like one of many, right? With that status. Like there's a lot of people who, it's important to the mission, right? They are important to your mission, but so are a lot of folks, but they're still vested. So they're secondary. They may interact with other organizations in the same market as yours. So you could have stakeholders that are perhaps in the healthcare IT space, but they're stakeholders in multiple different places. They're stakeholders in different organizations because of the position or the place that their company sits in or the industry their company is in. They can be more easily replaced. If they drift away, it's like it's okay because you still have others that are either driving or helping you build and lift capacity from a mission and purpose perspective. They are often keen to engage and will be proactive, right? So they may not have the strong like stake in the ground, but they're still going to be around and they're going to support. They have the potential to move and they could become a primary stakeholder or have some type of primary relationship with you as a project leader, project manager. So once they learn more about the work, they may want to establish a stronger tie. They may say, we really need to get in on this and we need to form an MOU, or we need to identify how we can work closer. We actually do have a stronger vested interest in this mission or in this project, and they may shift from a secondary to a primary. They can be excellent partners. Excellent partners. They don't want to have their hand in everything and they're not super vested, but maybe they have a particular specialization that they are focused in on, or that their organization feels like they can add value. And so they share that added value for a very specific purpose. Primary, secondary. So think about it. Can you think about who some of your primary and secondary stakeholders might be? I hope you've been able to kind of write those down. Who might be your primary and secondary stakeholders? If you've got an idea, or even you may have refined your thinking, you're like, now that we've talked about this a little bit, I kind of think a little bit differently. Put I got it in the chat. If you feel like you got it and you have a sense in the work that you're doing right now, who your primary and secondary stakeholders may be. Oh, I love it. Emojis, I've got some thumbs up and I got it. Yes. I love it. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So, what are the benefits of stakeholder-centric leadership? Putting your stakeholders at the center, the focus, the nucleus of what you're doing. One thing it can lead to is improved project outcomes. When everyone is on the same page and your stakeholders, especially your primary stakeholders, their needs and their requirements are front and center, you're going to have improved project outcomes, hands down. Stakeholder-centric leadership also leads to reduced risk. If you and your stakeholders are working collaboratively together, you are going to put yourself in a position to not have as many risks, or for the risks that you have identified and either accepted or understand that you're going to be able to remediate, having your stakeholders on board and understanding their needs, understanding where they already have some challenges is going to help you manage your risk. And we all know risk management is a part of what we do. So you can reduce those risks just by making sure that you're keeping your stakeholders in the center. Okay? Better resource allocation. This is huge. A lot of times our projects are overran because we are not paying attention to our stakeholders. We're not really thinking about what's most important to them. A lot of times, and I've seen this on projects where we're over delivering in areas instead of delivering quality, right? And value in the requirements that we already have set forth. So less can sometimes be more, or the actual initial request should be what you deliver. And when you deliver it, you just deliver it with quality. And that's going to impact your ability to have maybe increased funding, maintain the same level of funding, or put yourself in a position to where you're able to budget and perhaps even save costs. So you're going to have a better cost management and resource allocation just because you are keyed in as a leader on your stakeholders. And then the biggest thing, which is one of my core values just as an individual, is trust. So much can happen when you have the right amount of trust between individuals. When I can't trust an individual or an organization, it directly impacts the way we engage, and definitely the impact for me is how I will engage with them, right? Individual or org. So when I know that my stakeholders, I understand what they need, and they know that I understand what they need, they know and can trust that I'm going to deliver, there's trust here that's built between the two. Benefits of stakeholder-centric leadership. And there's far more. There's tons more. But these are the core that I believe really help us drive things forward as project managers and project leaders. Let's go to the next slide. So I want us to think about how we are actually engaging with stakeholders. And you may say, oh, all right, this is PMBOK 101, or, I got this. Like, this makes so much sense. I want to put it to real application, and I want you to think about the projects that you are managing right now, the organizations in which you are leading right now, and how are you going about really engaging with individuals? When you're intentional about your engagement process, and you're really thoughtful about what you say, when you say it, how you say it, and who you say it to, you would be amazed at what your stakeholder management looks like. You would be amazed in how it will change the outcome or the process to the outcome for your deliverables in your project. So let's talk about it. Identification, identifying all relevant project stakeholders. We all know that. Stakeholder management 101. Who are they, right? So we just talked about primary stakeholders, secondary stakeholders. Literally write them down and understand who they are. And not only who they are, but why do you even care that they're on your list, right? I definitely have some hidden columns in my stakeholder registrar, and I have that there because those are hidden columns for me of who I know that like I've really got to pay attention to and just talk to once or twice a week. Who is I have stakeholders that are just babies, and I got to rock you and cradle you and pat you on the back, because if I don't, you're going to totally take the project. So I got to be sure that let me know and I can identify that, and I have a cute little star by your name or what have you, because that's a reminder for me that I've got to, shake hands and kiss babies and give hugs, right? We have to think about this and real applying, like real applicable things and actions that we're doing every single day. You may say, Tareka, I don't have time for that. There's too many things going on. Then you're not aligned with stakeholder-centric leadership, because your stakeholders can make or break you. I don't care how good you're delivering on your project. Your stakeholders can make or break you. So it's important as a leader that you put them in the middle and you understand who they are, you identify them, and then we analyze them. Assess their interest, their influence, their expectations. Some people guys just like to be at the table because they want to be at the table and they want to say they were part of the project, and things are going great. Or, oh my gosh, this is an amazing project. I love the mission, I love the purpose, and that's about all you're going to get from them. Know that. Know that sometimes you're just going to have talkers that are stakeholders. Everybody who has a vested interest, everyone's level of investment looks different. So you've got to do this analysis because you need to understand how I'm going to engage, who's interested in what, who has influence, right? Who can truly make and or break me, who can lift me, who can guide me, who's going to be my advocate in the room when I'm not there, right? Where's the influence? What type of influence do they have on your project? And then expectations. What are their requirements? What are their expectations? Right? I have had stakeholders on projects that they have about this much real influence They are really not a decision maker, but they can make enough noise to where they can cause damage on my project. And all their expectation was is they were copied on an email. Did I think that they needed to be copied on the email? Was there any relevancy for them to being copied on the email? Did it prevent me from having to deal with a very loud and assertive and potentially reckless stakeholder in the project? Yeah. How did I prevent that? I copied them on the email. Did they ever respond on the email? No. Did they ever provide any insights? No. They just wanted to know that they were important, they were part of this project, and they were copied on the email. And sometimes I think as project managers or project leaders, we're like, I'm not doing that. But please understand that that's a part of stakeholder management. You have got to meet people where they are because you are ultimately thinking about the overall success and the outcomes that you want to see in your project. And if that means that you have to do one little added step to keep a stakeholder in a good position with you because they could potentially negatively impact what you're doing, so be it. As long as it is not a detriment to you, your peace, and the overall health of your project. Okay? Planning. Planning. Yes. I love this. Did you get upset they were trying to micromanage you? I'm also betting you'd say no. The benefit of them not becoming an issue outweighs the effort of CC on every email. Ding, 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 ding. I love that. And yes, kissing babies and shaking hands and giving hugs. Like sometimes you just got to do that. And when you do it and you get it out the way and people feel appreciated and acknowledged and seen and they move out of your way so you can go do your job and get it done. Okay. Then there's planning. Develop a stakeholder engagement strategy, right? There are some folks, guys, from a stakeholder perspective that I know I need to engage with them every single week. So you think about when you're developing your communications plan. So let's put planning and communications together. We maintain this open and transparent dialogue throughout the project, but you don't have to talk to everybody all the time. So in that communications plan, and you're thinking about planning your stakeholder engagement, who do I need to meet with? What's the frequency I need to meet with them? Is it a meeting or is it an email, right? You're thinking about what's the point of engagement in which I need to have with that particular stakeholder. This is all in the engagement process, and it is meant to help you set yourself up for success. It is also meant to have a great benefit to your stakeholders because they know and they feel that they are at the center of what is happening around seemingly, as they believe, their project because of how they are vested in it directly or indirectly if they're a secondary stakeholder. Then there's monitoring. So you have to constantly think about how we are engaging and then monitor that engagement, right? Directly. Like think about it. Is I'm delivering well, but are my stakeholders feeling that I am meeting my expectations? I'm meeting their expectations. Yes, we're meeting the technical requirements of the work that we're doing, or we're meeting the scope of work, or we're delivering on time and on schedule. But what is the health of the relationship with your stakeholders? You can deliver exceptionally within a project and still not win or still not succeed because your stakeholders are not happy. You're like, wait a minute, but I just delivered this great project. We're on time, we're under budget. Like, this is great. Well, what if you had a stakeholder that's like really had an important additional requirement or feature that they wanted to bring to the table? And clearly there were resources for it because you came in under budget. No one asked you to come under budget. We actually needed to extend all of our resources. We can't get that money back. But because you weren't tapped into your stakeholders, not only did you leave money on the table, but now you have a stakeholder who's not happy, who says, now I've missed out on this opportunity to have this enhancement because my primary project leader and project manager did not connect with me. And I felt like I'm a primary stakeholder and I got a stake in the game. And we had money. And now that money's gone. And I don't get my feature. You guys connecting in that? You've got to think strategically across your stakeholder engagement process. And you have to architect that process for what's going to work for you, but what also is going to keep your stakeholders front and center and top of mind. Let's go to the next slide. So once we think about our our stakeholders and we go through, we do this in our thinking about our process, we also have to identify stakeholder expectations. And there's lots of ways to do that. And I hope you guys will have a chance to get maybe a PDF of these slides, or you go back and watch the presentation, because it is really important that we think about stakeholder analysis, engagement, documentation, and then updating expectations, right? We've talked about analysis and we've talked a bit about engagement. I want to jump down to document expectations and update expectations. So you have got to create some type of structured approach for yourself to document what your stakeholders need. This is very different from like requirements documentation, or what are deliverables on the project, or what are the list of tasks that we have going on. This is specifically for your individual stakeholders, and especially those who are primary and you're engaging with them on a regular basis. Document their actual expectations of the project, of course, but what are their expectations of you? Right? What are their expectations of you? You need to document that. You cannot keep everything up here. You need to be able to see for yourself, what type of engagement do I need to have? And I need to document for myself what I believe my stakeholders' expectations are. Okay? You may need templates, spreadsheets, some type of project management software. I'm sure we all use different things, MS Project, Smartsheet, Asana, but you got to have a place where you are documenting expectations. Right? What are their priorities? Be very specific. What are the requirements that they may have? Again, of the project, yes, but also of you. Update those expectations. So recognize that people's targets change, right? I feel like I've got stakeholders that literally are little chameleons, because 2 months ago, you had this expectation. Now you have this expectation, and it's like traveling and following the bouncing ball. But we have to be open and agile and flexible and know that our stakeholders' expectations may what? Evolve over time. Has anybody had a stakeholder change their mind on you mid-game and you thought that this was the target and now the target is here? And let me know. Give me emoji, something in the chat. Has anybody had a stakeholder just completely change the game on you? And we went from left to right. We probably went then from right to diagonal, and then diagonal to up. And then somehow, after we thought we were good and we were no longer doing left, we got back to left. When you are, I see it. When you are really tapped into your stakeholders, you can almost anticipate it. Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes, absolutely. You could almost anticipate, right? Literally anticipate as their changes are coming, because we're so tapped in. And I'm just like, yep, I'm just about expect Daniel to change about now, right? Because we're following and we're looking at their patterns. As project leaders and project managers, we cannot be so heads down. We have to have our heads up. I talk about this a lot when I speak on like professional and personal branding, that you can't just have your head down doing a good job. You're missing everything around you, right? You're missing all the context clues and all the things that are in your peripheral. You're missing it. And that's how you got to think about with your stakeholders. Even though you're operating within the project, you got to have your head on a swivel with your stakeholders, because their expectations could change at any time. So you want to regularly visit and update your documentation, right? You want to engage with your stakeholders often enough so where you can anticipate some of those patterns and think about, I wonder if their expectation is changing here. You could be real good when you can start to anticipate them and you beat them to the punch and you say, you know what? After last week's meeting, it really seemed like you were leaning towards X. Am I right about that? They'll be like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for paying attention. I really was thinking that we needed to go this direction, right? Now you're anticipating the needs. Now you're being a stakeholder-centric leader, because you are allowing your stakeholder needs to drive, not just the deliverables and the requirements to drive. Okay? And they're both in the car, and they're changing who's driving and who's in the passenger seat constantly, right? Because we got to manage both. Let's go to the next slide. So let's talk a little bit about how do we mitigate and resolve stakeholder conflicts? Am I the only person who's had a stakeholder conflict? Has anybody had a stakeholder conflict? Everybody has stakeholders that are just like rainbows and sunshine. I can tell you that I definitely have had stakeholder conflicts, and they're not always easy to navigate. Sometimes it can be a real challenge. Conflicts can arise to differing stakeholder interests. I had one today. I did too, actually. But they can arise because it could be a conflict between stakeholders. So it might not necessarily be with you, but because you're doing stakeholder management, you do have a place in that. It could be the project leaders, have a different thought because we are thinking best practice and we're trying to be their thought partner and we're trying to help them advance in the most technically sound or best practice way because their way is just wrong. Right? There's all different types of conflicts that could happen. Project leaders must be prepared to mediate disputes and find common ground. Right? I'm not a firm believer that the customer is always right. I'm a firm believer that the customer is always going to have an opinion. And their opinion could be right or it could be wrong. But you, as a leader, have some powerful things that you can use to help mitigate or mediate disputes and find common ground. I always like to start with data. I like to tell people, typically 9.9 times out of 10, the data doesn't lie. Data tells a story. So I try to find quantitative and qualitative data to help substantiate what I'm saying, what I'm suggesting, what I'm recommending, right? So that I can somehow try to mediate the dispute or find some common ground because this is what the data is telling us, right? And the data comes in many different fashions and forms. It's not always a spreadsheet or a chart, right? I said quantitative and qualitative. Sometimes data could be, I've talked with my team and based on that conversation with my team, I've been able to understand A, B, C, and D. That's qualitative data, right? That's you taking a deep dive and understanding what you're gathering from your team and utilizing that to mediate a dispute or mediate a challenge and try to find some common ground. We also have to think about when we're mitigating or trying to resolve stakeholder conflict is the communication, right? Effective communication and negotiation skills are a must. Whenever conflict comes, top of the table, you have to think about how am I communicating and messaging to both parties or all parties who are involved in this conflict. If the communication is not effective, then it's going to be very difficult to resolve the stakeholder conflict, especially a primary stakeholder who has a lot of influence, right? Or they're the project sponsor and they're really driving. You better believe that you have got to be an effective communicator. And sometimes it causes us to step out of our comfort zone where you might send an email. This might be a time where you got to walk down the hall. This might be a time where you got to schedule a Teams call and you usually don't put your cameras on for Teams calls, but this one you got to put your camera on because it calls for a different type of communication. We have to be flexible in our communication. Right? Stop talking to alphabets all day. Sometimes your camera has to come on and you have to have a conversation because I need you to see body language. I need you to see tone. I need you to see intent. And that can get lost when I'm talking to TW, right? That could get lost. So you've got to think about effective communication and how you're going to articulate the need for that communication, right? And then we've got to negotiate. And negotiation is not always this or that, A or B, right? Negotiation has levels to it. And so as a project manager and leader, you have to be able to negotiate so you can get to a good place of collaboration or you get to a good place of agreeing to disagree or agreeing to move forward or whatever it might be, but you've got to get yourself into a good space. And that takes negotiation. It's not very straightforward. Okay. Next slide, please. Stakeholder engagement tools. There's all different types of tools you can use for stakeholder engagement. You can do stakeholder mapping, stakeholder influence grid, communications plan. Stakeholder analysis can be represented in a visual map, right? And it's oftentimes almost like a roadmap, or it can be a matrix or a grid, and you're utilizing that to plot their interests and their influence. And sometimes I'm very direct in my stakeholder matrix because it's for me and it's for nobody else, unless it's like some projects where I have had like a joint workbook that our PMO will issue. And so I can't be as direct and blunt. But when it's my own, I was like, do I care or not care? Like, I literally am pretty direct to myself because it's Tareka talking to Tareka and it's my tool. So I need to understand, okay, for this stakeholder, like, how much do I really care? Like, does it matter if, you are upset or not? Or, oh my goodness, like this person over here, I really have to put a lot of energy. This person right here, I can probably do a little bit here or there. So I have fun with it, right? But it also helps me remember how to engage with my stakeholders because I've been very intentional about doing my stakeholder mapping or developing my influence grid. And I am using it as a tool for myself. And I will tell you, if you have very visible stakeholder tools that you have to share within your organization, it's not a bad idea to have a post-it or something on your desk that you can use. That's just a little reminder, like for yourself, of how am I really interacting with this person? What is it that I really need to remind myself to do? There are some stakeholders that, truth be told, guys, full transparency, it's us, right? That I just don't care for. And I don't want to talk to you. So I have to put it on my calendar and be very intentional. So I go talk to you and I engage with you because if I don't, it's going to impact my team. Or if I don't, it's going to impact my project, right? So I have to be very intentional and schedule when I'm going to go talk to this person because I really don't care to be around your energy. But as a leader and a manager, I can't just avoid and not be around you and not engage with you because you are a major influencer within my project, right? So use your tools, not just because they're there and that's what we're trained to do. Use your tools and be very intentional so that they can actually serve you for what you need. Okay? Jump over to comms plan. Create a simple communications plan, guys. Very simple table in our spreadsheet. It just helps you think about communicating. Is this an email? Again, as we're saying this in the stakeholder engagement kind of a process, right? What does that look like? Is it an email to this person? Is this biweekly meetings? What is the frequency of that? So that you really have a good sense of the communications protocols and the multiple communications channels that you have across your project. We have to use tools. And again, I'm a firm believer. You're not just using tools because you were trained to do so. You're utilizing these tools because they are going to help set you up and your project up for success. Okay, next slide. So just want to give you some examples. This is from PMI. It's an easy little matrix and a way to think about your stakeholders. Here you're thinking about, who do I need to keep satisfied? Who do I need to manage really closely? Who do I just need to monitor and kind of keep a little side eye to be sure that they're staying in line and there's nothing crazy going on? And then who do I know I really got to keep informed, right? Because there's a high level of interest in the space of keeping informed and managing them closely. There's maybe a lower level of interest and power for those folks who really just need to monitor them and minimal effort and not put a whole lot of space there. Matrices like this are really easy. I've drawn this before, like in a meeting as I'm, and I'll just write people's names. They don't know what I'm doing. I just draw my little boxes and I'm like KSMCMKI. I just write initials because I'm in a project kickoff meeting and I thought I had this stakeholder piece all knocked out because I had my cute little stakeholder list. And that's great to have the registry of who they are and the stakeholder list. That's fantastic. But I need to understand how I'm going to engage with them. And that kickoff meetings tell you a lot of things about your stakeholders. And this is a great little easy way to just have your little cheat sheet on the side. And you're like, Kim, manage closely. David, keep informed. Sarah, I don't gotta worry about her. Monitor. You just kind of go through, and that's kind of your cheat sheet so that you can begin to truly formulate your engagement plan. All right, next slide. So here's another tool. This is like a stakeholder analysis matrix template, same type of concept that you're thinking about, but it has just a couple of different layers to it. So you're thinking about interest and influence, but if you look in the top left quadrant, it's even giving you a little bit more definition of negative support, high influence, commit. Negative support, moderate influence, invest. And so you kind of look at the planes there and you can plot where people need to be. Does that make sense? So instead of just writing them in any area, you can kind of plot them in the planes closer to the lines of leverage, commit, invest, like kind of move them around in low and high and interest and influence. And that's really a good way as well when you've got primary and secondary influencers that have varying degrees depending on the role that they're in or the level of interest they have in your project. Next slide. This is my favorite. I use this actual very slide with team members. And as we are collectively as team members trying to really do some stakeholder mapping, right? So this is a project stakeholder map. And see those little people, my little green, yellow, blue, and purple? We named them and we move them around on the board together. So I've put this in a Miro board before. I'm not sure if you guys have used Miro before. It's a great collaborative tool, especially if you're doing team meetings and engagement and you want everyone to participate, but you're not in the same room. So it's the same type of concept. That we've done this in a PowerPoint presentation, and we've honestly, in times where I haven't had Miro, I've utilized it in SharePoint, and I've had everybody go into SharePoint, and they are able to just move them around, and because we're in SharePoint together, we can actually see it. So there's so many different ways if you don't have the tool itself that you can kind of engineer something that you can utilize with your teams. But the idea is that you fill in each of the project stakeholder icons with the initials or the name of the person or the individual, and then we place the icons in the relevant map quadrants and where they need to be. It's also a great way to get a sense of what your team thinks. Right? Yes, yes. Big Jim is great. Yep. So all types of tools. And again, we all know that doing this type of stakeholder mapping makes sense, right? But how do you own it? I talk a lot to like my career development clients. I tell them all the time, how are you owning these processes? It's great that you have your PMP. Yay, we did it. Don't want to take that test ever again. It's great that we have this functional knowledge of project management and this discipline, but how are you making it your own? And what are you doing as a project manager and leader of those who are on your teams, especially if you are directly managing and leading teams? What are you doing to bring it to life? What are you doing so that the same passion that you have as a project manager and leader, your team members can connect to that, right? It's one thing to have tasks and deliverables and KPIs and all these things that we've got to, we're going towards. But it's another thing when you can bring your team into the process. And stakeholder management is not just on your shoulders. A part of stakeholder-centric leadership is actually engaging other stakeholders, right, which are your team members, and in getting their sense and their thoughts on the level of impact that they believe stakeholders will have. That makes sense, guys. It's so great to utilize the tools. Again, I'm going to say this over and over again because if you don't leave with anything else, you got to leave with this. It's not just about using the tools. It's not just about knowing processes. It's about making it your own. It's about applying it in a way and bringing it to life so that it allows you and causes you to be successful, right? Both as a leader and the project. Full picture, full circle. All right, next slide. Here is the stakeholder communication plan template. Super easy. Who the person is, their power and their interest. Is it high, medium, low? You can use kind of the red, green, yellow if that's helpful. Key interest in issues, right? What do they really care about? Maybe honestly, they don't care about phase 1 and 2, but really all they care about is phase 3 of the project. Okay. Communication vehicle. What are we using? Emails, Teams, Slack, right? There's all different types of tools out there. What type of tool, what's your vehicle for communicating with them? Do you only get them in meetings? Are those meetings quarterly? If you go to frequency, the next column, are they quarterly? Are they monthly? Are they weekly? Right? And then what unique comments do you need to put down for yourself or for your team members so that when we go to the stakeholder communication plan, it's meaningful and it also has some context, right? So comments and context. Actually, in some of my projects I've managed before, I've changed comments to context. Sometimes you see comments and then people start commenting on my documents like, well, no, I don't need you to comment on anything. It's final. just read only. I need you to read it and understand what it's there for. It is not for you to edit. That's not what this is for. So I've changed comments to context, right? So that people can just see, here's some context about this stakeholder, but please do not go in and change my columns and my rows and mess with my complete OCD. Like, don't do that. That's gonna drive me crazy. All right, next slide. So I want to go through some project scenarios with you. Okay. So I hope that this has been good for you. I hope it's been thought provoking and you're thinking about how you're managing your stakeholders or how we're not managing our stakeholders and what things you could be doing differently. Let's look at some scenarios here. And I would love someone to maybe raise their hand and give me some thoughts on each one of them. So the first scenario, local government embarked on a project to create a sustainable community park that would provide recreational space while addressing environmental concerns. The project aimed to transform an underutilized area into an eco-friendly park with walking trails, playgrounds, and natural habitats. The project manager, Sarah, recognized the importance of stakeholder engagement and employed a stakeholder-centric approach. So, what project leader actions that Miss Sarah in scenario 1 could she do? What should she do for this project from a stakeholder identification perspective, engagement and communication, and understanding expectations? Anyone want to raise their hand and come off mute to tell us your thoughts around scenario 1? How might she go about doing stakeholder identification, engagement and communication, and understanding expectations in this scenario? Any thoughts there? I'll share a little bit on this one, and then we'll see the next scenario. So, for this, it's local government in part embarked on this project that was very much community based. So the first thing we could do from a stakeholder identification perspective is understand, well, who are the stakeholders? So it's the government, it's local government. Okay, is this out of Parks and Recreation? Who's the director or manager of Parks and Recreation? Who is managing the current playgrounds and recreational spaces that are already in the city? Who's going to be on this project team? Is there a vendor that's coming in that's supposed to help us build this? Is there anyone in urban development and planning? Right. So we go through and we kind of assess who those individuals might be, identify their names, and then we go through that process, right? What's their influence, and then their involvement? Can they have a negative impact, positive impact, etc.? Engagement and communication. We probably got to have a kickoff meeting. This is a pretty cool project, right? So we'll want to engage with them. We'll want to do a kickoff meeting, set some standards for how we're going to communicate. Probably not all going to be in the same space because this seems like it's going to be a multi-stakeholder environment. So we want to set up some virtual infrastructure for us to engage with one another. Maybe we have a shared Teams channel or we have some type of shared working space that we can use. And then understanding expectations. We got to collect requirements. We maybe could start at the community level. Maybe we do a questionnaire or some type of data call to the community or survey to the community to understand what does this underutilized space in this community, like what do they need? What does the local government feel that they need? Maybe they've already done some of that. So we have to understand expectations and document those expectations and requirements so we can dig into bringing this project to life. You guys see how that scenario works out? Let's jump to the second scenario. I like that. I think lots of the other stakeholders, like the community at large, the immediate neighbors, yep, the underutilized space, community organizations, nonprofits, absolutely, right? So it's full gamut, right? Some of those are primary stakeholders, some of those are secondary stakeholders, but it's looking broadly, and I love that, extending like into the neighborhood, because they are definitely stakeholders. They're going to be utilizing what's in this currently underutilized space, and we want to be sure that it's something that they believe would work for their community. So love that. Okay, scenario number 2. A global manufacturing company decided to update its outdated legacy systems with a modern ERP system to streamline operations, enhance productivity, and remain competitive. The project manager, Alex, recognized the critical importance of stakeholder engagement given the project's impact on various departments and teams across the organization. So, does anyone want to tackle this one? Thinking again about those 3 actions: stakeholder identification, engagement, communication, understanding expectations. Yes, I see Chris. Go for it.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I think for stakeholder identification, you clearly have to go to the manufacturing floor. You have to talk to the employees because it's a manufacturing company. There may be unions that you have to deal with, but you probably also have to deal with the finance team. You have to deal with the engineering team if you're going to be changing systems on a manufacturing floor. It's not just those who use it, it's those who own all the engineering processes. And then, of course, the executive management team, we're going to foot the bill for all of this. Engagement and communication. I think it's going to be, I always think about these things in terms of the phases, right? Phase one is get everybody's buy-in and make sure they understand the importance of updating outdated legacy systems and what the benefits are. Then it's going to be, pain management at some point, because you're going to be rolling out a new system. So you have to have your plan in place for how you deal with complaints and how you deal with people who are resistant. And then I think there's the celebratory phase where it's all working. And so, but you still have to continue communicating with showing them the values and making sure that you're communicating with them on how great it is now that we have the new systems in place. I guess I skipped a little bit around because a lot of that is also understanding expectations, right, Tareka?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think you hit it spot on. Not necessarily needing to be in order. Thank you so much for that, Chris. But yeah, I think you hit that spot on. Awesome. Okay, next slide. All right. So I want you to, as we're doing those scenarios, sometimes I will leverage like OpenAI and just do things like ChatGPT or Jounce or other OpenAI platforms just to almost create scenarios for me. And I'd like to do that because it just challenges me to think about how I'm going to stay on my toes and be prepared when it comes to stakeholder engagement. So, I feel like OpenAI is really only, especially generative AI is only as good as the prompts that you give it. So sometimes I will say, act as a organization who needs to start a new project, and I'll say what the project focuses on and the needs around the project, requirements around the project. Provide me 5 strategies in which a project manager could tackle this, right? And what I love about generative AI is that it's not meant to be the golden rule, but it does exactly what it says it's going to do. It's going to generate. And I feel like it's generating ideas. And it just makes me think differently. And I'm like, never thought about that. Or that don't make no sense. But right, like everything that's there is not going to be golden. But I like it because it challenges me to think about what types of scenarios might come up. And I do this for my teams. I will utilize AI to develop scenarios for my team as well. And we do that in our team meetings because it might not have happened yet, guys, but what happens when it happens, right? So that's how I think about it. It's like, what happens when it happens? And let's leverage the power of technology to help us think this through. So I might not be able to think of the scenarios on my own, but I can leverage OpenAI to do that. It's really, 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 really cool. And it's a great way to keep your team thinking about stakeholder-centric leadership and stakeholder-centric engagement, right? And it's a fun way because it's all hypothetical. So you don't have to worry about putting sensitive company information. You're just making up an idea and letting AI give you something back. It's very cool. Try it. Yes, love it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you. I like that you like that. Thank you. Okay, core stakeholder-centric values for project leaders. So emotional intelligence, stakeholder satisfaction, value, and impact. That to me is at the core. We have to have emotional intelligence. And that's not easy. It's not easy, but it's so very important because it allows us to connect to our stakeholders. It allows us to have empathy and understanding. So we really want to think about our emotional intelligence. Stakeholder satisfaction at the core. Are your stakeholders satisfied? And guess what? Their satisfaction might not be measured because you delivered the project on time. They might not care about it being on time. All they cared about is that they wanted a red wall, and everyone kept ignoring them, including you, about the red wall. That's all they wanted. And they didn't get a red wall. Did you build the building? Yes. Is it standing? Yes. Does it meet all the requirements? Yes. Is there a red wall? No. In their minds, the project failed. Right? Maybe not that drastic, but you see what I'm saying? We have to think about stakeholder satisfaction and what are their requirements, but also what are their expectations, and you being able to find that middle ground and manage them accordingly. And then value and impact. How are you delivering value? Sometimes you can deliver value just by being an active listener and your stakeholders feel heard. The decision or what they're asking for might not move forward, but the fact that they feel heard is amazing. And that's all they wanted was somebody to consider their idea and their opinion. That's it. Nothing more, nothing less. That brings value. And then of course, impact, right? Were you able to come in under budget? in a quicker time and and you're able to beat the timeline or schedule? Were you able to create something more efficient or a process that's now more effective? Were you able to introduce something new to help streamline their approaches and their processes? Right. So value and impact. These are the core areas, in my opinion, for how we can truly get to the core of stakeholder centric values for ourselves as project leaders. Next slide. All right. So that is the end of all that I wanted to share with you. I hope this was really helpful. I love to stay connected with you, but I want to use this time for questions. So, Jasmine, let me know how you want to facilitate that, but I'd love to take any questions that you guys have. And thank you so much for having me with your chapter today.
Thank you. So if there's any questions, I'll read them for you in the chat. But I actually have a question to get us started.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm a consultant for the government. So my client, my major stakeholder is the government, the Children's
Right.
Bureau to be exact. And I have about 6 different stakeholders that I have to make happy on individual projects. One particular stakeholder is a Krabby Patty. And the other day, we had a one-on-one meeting, and she proceeded to not want to negotiate, not want to have a conversation, and hung up on me via Teams.
Well, that's always fun.
So, I hear what you said in this presentation. I don't negate anything that you said, but just thinking about strategies to kind of navigate that relationship.
Yeah, that's hard because oftentimes when we get there, and I've definitely had my fair share of not fun engagements, but by the time we get there, that was building up. So there was a beginning to that, and it's spiraled into now here's this action or this behavior that's happening for our stakeholders. And so what I would say is that it's almost an opportunity to step back and think about what led to how do we get here, right? How did we get to like the click on the teams? What milestones or events have happened over time that could have been fueling this? And I have found a lot of times that, people are responding or reacting or acting out because whatever the heart of the issue is, they don't know how to articulate, or they feel like they have been articulating and communicating it, and they just haven't been doing it effective. So then that kind of turns into the tantrum, right? So now you're throwing a tantrum. When you hang up on a Teams call as a professional, you're throwing a tantrum, right? There's no reason for that. But there's something that has happened to get us there. And I think while you can't take that back of what's happened, you can learn from it so that you can either improve the relationship, or you can, put something in place so it doesn't happen again. But I would challenge you to think back to how did we get here? What are a series of events that could have happened over time, rather if they had anything to do with you or not, that caused this? And then is there anything, and sometimes there's not, but is there anything that you could do to prevent that from happening or to at least mitigate it so it doesn't happen at that degree?
Thank you for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just in a nutshell, I've decided to take a step back and let the whisperer who gets along with her deal with her front facing, and I'll just do everything behind the scenes because she doesn't like new people.
There you go. And there you go. So that right there is a part of your stakeholder assessment analysis. Right?
Gotcha.
You already know she does not like new people. If I'm new, you're not gonna like me. Right? So if I already know that that's a part of my analysis, which is this is so perfect. Like that is it. That's the thing. There's the reflection. She does not like new people. If we know that, and there's ways that we can help engage others that have familiarity, then let's do that. And you may say, but because a lot of times what we say is, no, I'm the project lead, I'm the project manager. You have to work with me. No, you don't. I have people who you can engage with until I can build the relationship to where I move from new to familiarity. Right?
Gotcha.
I gotta do that. And I see that especially in like Department of Defense and like Department of Homeland Security types of projects. I see those types of things all the time. If you're not, one of them, I always say that, like, we start getting to spaces like if you're not one of the common kind and they know you and they're used to working with you, it is hard to break that shell. So I stopped trying to break the shell and tried to find somebody who was already there. Who's already in there? Who do I need to be my ally? And so that I can still move forward effectively and successfully because this person doesn't know me yet. But then I'm going to work to build the relationship with you indirectly and directly so I can get out of no new friend zone over here into like we're familiar and you will actually engage with me in a positive way.
So we have a comment and a question. Thank you for that, by the way.
Yeah,
We have a
absolutely.
comment and a question from Chris. I really enjoyed how you insisted on leveraging engagement methods in this talk, emojis, chat, and asking us to just type in a reaction. That's good stakeholder management for your talk as you view us as key stakeholders. A question for you. As I'm an instructor and my projects are mostly the courses I teach at the college level, I feel my students are a primary stakeholder. Are there other primaries you can think of I might need to focus on?
I love that. I love that. Yes, absolutely. I think other primary stakeholders are other professors. And let me tell you why. Your students are having different experiences across their educational journey. And so it's not isolated to you, right? And especially if they are taking courses that are within the same department. So I think especially professors or adjunct professors who are within the same department, they are absolutely primary stakeholders for you. And it should be a top priority to kind of understand what the students' experiences might be in those spaces. And that might not necessarily be intuitive, but I will tell you, and having three kids one who's graduated college, one who's a freshman in college, and another who's in her first year of law school, if there was more connectivity at the professor level, I think their students would have a different type of experience, right? Because if I've gotten into my upper level courses and I'm taking all things history or all things, biology or, environmental science, whatever it might be, there's got to be some continuity and connection across the curricula that it takes for me to get the degree in the first place. And that in itself, you can kind of think about those as your primary stakeholders and not in a place where they're driving what you do. It's your syllabi, it's what you're doing, but definitely from a space of what are you doing that's working? We've got potentially some of the same students because this is their graduation plan, their degree plan, right? What are some of the things that you are seeing? So I think that's primary stakeholders. And then the other, and this is going to make you laugh, but I actually did a presentation for a community college and I told them that environmental services is one of their stakeholders. And they were like, what? I said, oh yes, honey, let me tell you why. Environmental services is one of your stakeholders because if it's too cold or if it's too hot in the room and you're not teaching virtually and it's in person, you have a problem if your students are too hot. You have a problem, your students are too cold. It impacts their ability to focus, it impacts their ability to learn, and you want to get to know those folks. Another folk in your primary, another folk people who could be considered as primary stakeholders in that environment would be even like the what do you call it? The student services, right? Those are your primary stakeholders. Like who's offering tutoring, right? Or if you have a tutor, that's one of your primary stakeholders. So I would think about that in context. Like, of course, your students, tried and true, they're your primary stakeholders, but where are those who have, if they're the project, where are those who have a direct impact on them? And there are all these outside variables that can impact their educational journey, and those are in your stakeholder groups.
Thank you for that. We have another question in the chat. And we have time for one more. So after Megan, we could definitely squeeze in one more. Megan says, I'm between positions. So my question is about coming into new situations. How do you ensure stakeholder engagement when you're the newbie?
So you're actually in a really unique position because you get to be an observer, right? So if you're coming into new situations, you're the new kid on the block, and actually at first go, no one's looking for you to engage, but it's the perfect opportunity for you to observe because it's almost like the no one sees you coming type of thing, right? And you get a chance to see how people are working, how they're engaging or not, how they're performing, especially like when you're on new teams, you can kind of get a sense of that. That is going to allow you to have a different viewpoint, right? That you can bring to the table from a stakeholder management perspective. If you are the leader in that regard, like you are the manager, it allows you to draw some really strong conclusions for how you're going to manage your stakeholders. If you are an individual contributor that's a part of that project, but you may have a position of influence, it's an opportunity to provide new insights to that manager or project leader because you're just coming in from a new space, right? So it's hard coming into new situations. And I tell anyone, like when you're coming in as a new project manager or project leader, you honestly do got to come in hot a little bit, and you have to be assertive so that you are friendly and you're listening, but you're assertive and people know that you're here and you mean business so that you can start to build relationships. But if you have an opportunity to sit back and observe and kind of like look through the bushes a little bit, do that, right? Do that. You're going to gain some valuable insights just from those observations. Hope that answered your question.
Thank you so much. I think Megan, just come off of mute. It's okay.
Thank you so much. That was very insightful.
Absolutely. You're welcome.
Do we have any other questions before we end the meeting? Well, Tareka, I just want to say, oh, Chris said that's very insightful. Thank you. I appreciate your viewpoint as a parent with children in college. So
Thank you.
yeah,
Very
and
welcome.
Megan
You're
says,
welcome.
thanks, great advice, thanks. So thank you so much, Tareka. This was so informative. Again, just a way to, it's all how you frame it and how you think about these things and put it into perspective. And this was very creative and very innovative. So I really do appreciate it. I got some gems. I hope other people got gems. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. And I would love to talk to you guys again or participate in whatever professional development conferences or symposiums or summits or things like that you have within your chapter. But I all the way from PMI-WDC, which is my home chapter. I didn't even say that, but that's my home chapter. And I'm our VP of Communication, Marketing and Communications. I appreciate you and thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Tareka. And definitely, I have something in the works, like a panel for the fall. So I'll definitely keep you in mind for that. But
Love it.
thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
So again, thank you so much, Tareka. That was awesome. That was great. A lot of great gems. Our next meeting, Project Pitfalls, presented by Nancy C. Bedore. She's actually our former VP of Communications, so that's a little plug in volunteering and presenting. Wednesday, April 27th, 2024, from 6:30 to 8 p.m. And it'll be 1.5 PDUs, Power Skills. And thank you again for attending tonight's meeting. And have you thought about how you can make an impact with HVC? Always have to give you a shameless plug. If you're interested in volunteering with the Hudson Valley chapter, please contact our interim volunteer coordinator at member@large@PMI-HVC.org. And please follow us on social media. And again, this video will be posted on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/@PMI-Hudson Valley chapter. And please note, if you are a member of the Hudson Valley chapter, your PDU will be submitted for you. And also, if you are a non-HVC member, as long as you submitted the PMI ID at registration, your PDU will be submitted as well. Just please allow us 5 to 7 days for processing. Again, thank you so much for attending tonight's meeting. Have a great and productive rest of your evening. Thank you.
Thanks for putting this together, Jasmine.
Thank you so much, Megan. I do appreciate that.
Take care.
See you next time.